So there have been a lot of videos recently about ex-vegans and them explaining why they're no longer vegan. And so I just wanted to make a little response video about why I'm still vegan, while I'll always be vegan. And before I get started, I'd like to give a little disclaimer in saying that, everybody judges one thing or another, and we're all entitled to our opinions, including myself. And so the things that I'm saying in this video are judgments of an industry and of a practice, and not of the people actually partaking in them. And I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Jordan Steven for inspiring me to make this video. So, to get started, in the meat, egg, and dairy industries, there's inherent suffering and cruelty. There's simply no way to turn a living being into meat at the rate at which people are currently demanding it without immense torture, cruelty, and suffering. And people don't want to work in this industry either. I mean, no one is born saying, no one as a kid says, "Oh, I want to go work in a slaughterhouse and be an animal killer when I grow up." And it's not just in the meat industry, but also in the egg and dairy industry that there's immense cruelty and suffering. For example, in the egg industry, the male chicks are useless to the industry because they don't lay eggs. So they're just dispatched or killed right as soon as they're born. And in the dairy industry, there's such slavery and exploitation of the female's reproductive system that happens, let alone the fact that the male cows, or bobby calves rather, are killed either as soon as they're born, or they're kept in horrible conditions to be killed when they're still babies for veal. Also, in the animal agricultural industry, the use of antibiotics is more than the use of antibiotics for human purposes. So about 70 to 80% of all antibiotics are used on farmed animals. This results in not only antibiotic resistant bacteria, but also superbugs like the swine flu, avian flu, etc., that end up killing many people when there's an outbreak. Animal agriculture also kills wildlife because of all the predatory animals that need to be killed by the farmers so that they can keep their animals outside alive until they're old enough to send off to slaughter. There's also the inherent death of some ruminant creatures in the harvesting of crops, which 90% or more are fed to farmed animals or go into other industrial uses. And if we were all just eating the soybeans and corn, etc., that are grown, we would drastically minimize the use of those crops and combines as well. Animal agriculture also pollutes a lot of fresh water supplies, and the waste runoff, which is dumped into those supplies, often results in diseases that affect humans as well when it gets into our water supply. It also pollutes the air immensely because of all of the cow farts, basically the methane that gets into the environment and causes, or at least contributes greatly to global warming. Our rainforest lands are also being destroyed at an abominable rate. Somewhere I've heard up to 80,000 acres of rainforest land are chopped down or burned every single day to create grazing land for cows. There's also a lot of plant species and animal species extinction that happens in this process. And if we just kept the current grain supply that we have right now and didn't continuously breed farmed animals and feed these things to them, we could feed the world over. We could basically get rid of world hunger as we know it. Vegan food is also exciting, it's delicious, and it offers a lot of versatility. I personally have eaten a lot more variety in food since becoming vegan about 6 years ago. And if you think about it, when people say, "Oh my gosh, I can't imagine not eating meat, what would I eat?" You're basically saying that if you didn't eat 3 animals, that your diet would suck. That your food choices or culinary experiences would suffer. And that's so untrue. And you don't have to worry, when you prepare plant foods, you can just have a kitchen full of plants and not have to worry about cross-contamination and using one cutting board for something and then, getting like a UTI or something from chicken, which is, supposedly a cause of many of those kinds of problems. Plants also have fiber, and animal products have no fiber. Fiber is what keeps you full, and fiber is what helps you make poop. And pooping is fun. It's no fun to be constipated, and all that muck that basically sits in the intestines of somebody who doesn't consume fiber ends up contributing to heart disease. So you can reduce your risk of heart disease by switching to a plant-based lifestyle. You can also reduce your risk of fractures. And I love that my diet contains no heme iron, no IGF-1, no hormones or steroids that were contributing to my, bringing about my death basically when I was consuming those products. And I personally have a story where I lost about 80 pounds when I started transitioning toward a plant-based diet. I was very overweight, and I was basically pre-diabetic at the time. My hands were tingling. I was, not in good shape. And it's amazing to embrace a movement which is full of people who are also trying to lead a life which is more compassionate, which is more inclusive, and which seeks to reduce harm. It's such a beautiful thing. There's really no excuse for not going vegan since we have no need to consume animal products. There's nothing in animal products that we need. And when people say that their bodies just craved it or that they just felt like they needed it, it's kind of this mental thing, I think, where they either end up basically caving to an addiction, or they just didn't really have good enough reasons for being vegan in the first place. And so social pressure, which is all around us, just ended up kind of eroding their willpower. And at the end of the day, the number one reason is that I wanted to align my actions with my values, because in my core, I love animals, and I know that anyone watching this, whether vegan or not, loves animals too. And it's just a matter of bringing that inner core love out into your world, out into your actual experience of the world, and admitting the fact that there is no such thing as humane meat. In fact, everybody who's vegan, another way to think of everybody who's vegan is just everybody who's admitted that they were wrong, because we're all mostly, unless you were brought up in a vegan household, we were all part of the system and we all made a change. So it's just a matter of acknowledging suffering that you're causing and doing your best to reduce it. So there's really no excuse to cause more suffering willfully. So those are the reasons why I'm still vegan. I really appreciate your watching, and thank you. Have a good day.